We're here to talk about Cutting Through Rocks with our co-directors, Sara Khaki and Mohammadreza Eyni. I hope I said your names correctly. Um,
Yes, you did.
Thank you. So, the film, for those of you who haven't seen it, tells the story of a woman in a small village in northern Iran who decides to run for office, the first woman to ever do so. The film premiered at Sundance in 2025, where it won the grand jury. It's been on an amazing festival run, picking up awards along the way. And I happened to see it in Washington, D.C. at DC Docs, where I also did the Q&A. So it's very exciting to also talk to you both again. And it is now nominated for an Oscar, the first Iranian documentary ever to be nominated. But the film still does not have distribution in the US. Do you have international distribution in other countries?
In some small territories, we've secured distribution, but not in the U.S.
I mean, there's so much about this film, both the film itself and the making of it, that sort of fit in with the idea of cutting through a rock, achieving the impossible. Um, and I know that the film has been made over 8 years. So just before we get into talking about the film, I just wanted to ask you about the title, because I've been thinking a lot about the title and of my own ideas about it. But for both of you, what is the title Cutting Through Rocks? What are you trying to say with that title?
Actually, I would love to share with you about where the Cutting Through Rocks came from, the title. But I'm also, before I share that, I'm curious to hear your thoughts and your what resonates with you about that title.
Well, given that making a documentary in any country independently is a very hard process that takes many, many years and personal sacrifice. But then also telling a story about a woman who also has fierce determination. It feels like it's about accomplishing the impossible, something that most people would never even try to do, cut through a rock. But this film really is about achieving the impossible. And that was my analysis. Does that line up with yours?
Yes, you said it so well, Kathleen. And that's really the idea behind this is, going from one setback to another with a lot of integrity and perseverance and hope that one day at the end of the day, this mountain full of rocks is going to be a clear path. And that's really the spirit that we witnessed with the lead participant, Sara Khaki, but also we really took that spirit in our with our souls as we were in production with a lot of ups and downs to make the impossible happen. And I think even after the film was made, even over the past year, I'd love to hear your thoughts, Mohammed, as I feel like that's also been cutting through rocks.
Yeah, it was exactly like cutting through rocks and the obstacles. It says about the hardship and a lot of up and downs that we had behind the camera and our main character, Sara Khaki, had to trying to bring change to the community and fighting against long held traditions. But at the same time, the hope for being able to do something about small changes, small steps every day. Because when you're cutting through rocks, it's not possible to do it in one session. You need to be patient every day. And our main character believes that you need to chip away every day a little bit of that rock if you want to create a path for yourself, for others, and for upcoming generation.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, the main subject of the film, Sara Khaki, how did I do with her last name?
Good.
Um, the film opens with this incredible scene of her fixing a gate. And I would love to hear about the shooting of that scene. And in some ways, it feels very insignificant. She's fixing a gate. It's not a film about construction. Um, what what was the decision process behind starting the film with this sequence of images of this woman struggling to fix a wrought iron gate on her own?
Go ahead.
Uh, yeah, for us, when we wanted to make this film, Sarah and I decided to make this film for biggest screen, for cinema. And we wanted to find a right visual language for this film. And we wanted to use all of the lessons that we got from the masters of cinema and the medium that we really love to tell the global story in a visual way. So with Sarah, we had a lot of conversations while before making this film, in the middle of it, and also in the editing room. So we decided to be patient with our story, being in the village, to see that, to find those visual elements. And it was 8 sessions of filming. And we each time we stayed there for 3 months or 2 months or 50 days. And it took 8 years for us to make this film. And we wanted to, as I said, for making it for bigger screen. And it was very complex story, multi-layered story, and we wanted to make it cohesive. And using all of those layers, involving all of those layers without losing, and make it simple without simplicizing its layers.
Mhm.
So the door scene was one of those scenes that we were in the village observing Sarah and trying to find drama in real life, in details, in the while Sarah is not doing big things, but also she's doing exactly what she's used to. So this scene we captured. We wanted to see the process, uh, and then we understood that this is not only about the fixing the door. And I loved Sarah to explain more about it, because we had also some editorial decisions for that scene.
Yeah, so basically what happened was with that scene, I have a visitor. I'm sorry, it's a live conversation. I'll talk to you in a second. Um, um, so with that scene, what happened was that um, it was really, really telling of the character, Sara Khaki, because she wouldn't give up until she really finishes fixing that gate. And it was really interesting for us to observe, to spend that time and film the process of her fixing the gate. And the whole door and gate became a metaphor of our film in a way, because it kind of appeared and reappeared in different parts of the story. Sometimes the women and girls use the same gate. They even know how to open it. And they would unlock it and they would come in with their stories. And that's really the way for Sarah to basically, she created an armor around herself. Um, and and also after we edited the film, and in retrospect we thought of it as the idea of Virginia Woolf's one room of a room for one's own, if I'm not mistaken the title. That idea of how important it is for women to be independent, and if and that Sarah Khaki, as an independent woman, she first needs to have that space for herself in order to be able to lend that independency and offer that courage and integrity to others, to other women.
Yeah, and it's very much connected to other layers of the film. When later we see Sarah fighting for a land ownership for women in the village, it's very much connected to this scene, because also Sarah is sharing the joy of being independent or having something for them, for as a woman, for herself, and Sarah trying to give that experience to other women too. And also when Sarah fighting for their own sisters regarding the inheritance story, the other layer of the film.
Mhm.
Again, this is related to fixing the door scene because Sarah wants their sisters to have their own territory and to fight for their own rights.
I mean, the the context of the place where they live is that men make all of the decisions, are in control, and Sarah feels like such a unique person. How is it that she even came up with the idea to run for office? We also see her negotiating on behalf of her sisters when their brothers try to take away their inheritance. What gave her from the beginning this? She seems to have the sense of like determination and drive where nothing will stop her and she will do anything on her own. Where does that come from?
Well, I think if you want to take a step back and really understand where Sarah Shavardi is coming from, I think she really took a lot of those sense of perseverance and tenacity from her father, from her late father, and um, and I think it's really really remarkable to see that her father taught her how to ride a motorcycle, how to do construction, how to do farming, and so many things that is still considered a taboo in certain cultures, and also not necessarily only um, in the Middle East, but also even in the U.S. There's still some gender norms that we are still trying to break, in some ways. So it's really remarkable to see and to reflect on the background of this specific person. In that setting, seeing how she's using motorcycle, for example, as a way to offer to encourage young girls to dare to think of a better future, to think of an alternative future for themselves, is as really remarkable to witness. What do you think, Mohammed Reza?
Yes, that's true. And also, when you start a film, a documentary film, especially observational film, you are going to use all of those backstories, the history of the character. And in our film, we decided to give those information in different parts of the film. So we know that her father was an important figure. And also, Sarah is trying to negotiate with other men to be a little bit like her father. Sarah now has a good role model to show other men to give more space to their daughters. And Sarah has someone to negotiate better, now a tangible example. So this is Sarah's backstory, and also how her dad gave her space that she deserves, and how brave Sarah is. And when other women talking about her divorce, also we understand that Sarah is the only woman in the village that dare to divorce and leave the marriage. I can say the marriage that she didn't want, kind of forced marriage. Also, she is the victim of uh, the forced marriage, that arranged marriage in that Sarah's case. So Sarah is now living that life, having those experiences. Now she's in a position to talk with other teenagers or their parents to stop child bride marriage tradition, because she's also, I think you can advocate for others when you've had those experiences. And Sarah
Mhm.
has all the problems you see in the film, Sarah has gone through before beginning our film.
I completely agree with you, Mohammed Reza. I also wanted to add that the fact that Sarah used to be a midwife tells a lot about how she knows the twists and turns and the little um, desires and needs of this society and this in this context. Sometimes we would take walks in the, or when she was driving, we would be hopping on her car. In different occasions, some women would walk up to her, and with just an exchange of an eye, without any conversations, we could tell that they go way back. And Sarah knew maybe so many different secrets, and shared so many vulnerable moments with them as she delivered their children, and in some ways I feel like she observed what was needed in this context and in this village, and then offered what she could do, which was quite a lot after her 4-year term.
This is a good point, Sarah, actually, because Sarah, by being a midwife, has a lot of knowledge about women inequality and being there and experiencing that. Do you like to share the walnuts story, Sarah? Because it says a lot, this
Yeah,
anecdote about Sarah.
yeah, that's interesting. So when she shared with us that when she was a midwife, because she stopped her midwifery practice, by the way, when they started building hospitals. So that this practice belongs to about 18, 20 years ago. But one of the times she was riding her motorcycle to one of these places to deliver a baby, she said she was greeted with so much energy and warmth by the family. And they said, if you deliver this child, we're going to offer you a big bucket of walnuts. They showed it to her. And she said, okay, well, let's get to work. And she delivered the baby, and it turned out to be a girl. And the family refused to give her the bucket of walnut, because they thought they were expecting a boy. And that really also played a part, that story played a part in really her activism, in a way, to feel that, oh, how come from the moment you're born, uh, there is a difference between being a woman and being a man. And she really wanted to break that.
The thing that I find so remarkable about this story is the fact that there's obviously a lot of women in that region of the world, and there's a lot of women on the planet, but most of us don't speak up, right? Most of us don't do the thing that no one else has done before, like run for office or stand up to male authority figures. And in this moment of thinking about why Sarah was able to achieve all this, the word that came to me was imagination, and having this root as a midwife, also creation. And she seems so, it's not that just that she didn't get paid or she was forced into marriage. It's that she also had the creativity and the imagination to come up with a different way for the world to be and then put that into action. And I also see that as what both of you two did in the making of this film. And one of the things that I was really interested to discuss with you both is the origin story. I I know that you grew up in Tehran, Sarah, and are very familiar with the conditions of that. And so when you were looking for this story, you were looking for stories about women taking their power, right?
Yeah, maybe I was looking for, in some ways, people that are the people that I look up to, because in my family, in my extended family, there's always one woman or two women or three women who are the ones who really paved the way.
Mhm.
And they really were the ones who cleared the path for the next generation, for the next people, for their siblings, and so on. So I had a lot of those stories in my mind, and when I heard about Sarah's story, I kind of felt that That's really, really interesting. I mean, there's so she doesn't have a role model, but there's so many people looking up to her. And how is she creating that world? How is she with all these setbacks and with all these um, uncertainties? How does she? I love the word imagination that you used. Maybe she is kind of picturing as an alternative future, and that's really she has a really must have a very clear image in her mind to want to keep going that way despite all the odds. Um, that's really interesting. When she, for example, becomes a council member, one of the things she did was she was like, there's so many things she was doing, but one of the things she did was she wanted to bring gas line. That's really a simple task for a council member to do, but she used that smartly to create land ownership for women. She basically went up to these households and said, "Okay, the man of the household, for one reason or the other, you are not able to officiate your documents in order for your house to, for us to bring a gas line. So the other alternative is for you to divide up your house and give half of the house ownership to your wife, and then that's how you can use your wife's basically information to bring the gas line." And that was really, really a smart thing to do because in the beginning, we weren't even sure if she would be able to make this happen. But now there are 150 women sharing lands with their husbands. And this is revolutionary given the context of not only Iran, but the Middle East and North Africa and beyond. And that takes a lot of imagination and clear creativity.
Mm.
But also, another thing I wanted to say as a viewer from the United States, obviously, was it also didn't feel that exotic, the situation she was facing and the women are facing. It was very relatable. Like, there's one scene where she's speaking to a bunch of women and she asks them, like, "Who of you are happy?" And I know that in from reading other interviews, Sarah, you've talked about how, um the plight of women, both here and in Iran, are not as distant as it might seem from the miles. But talk to me a little bit about sort of the ways in which you see the plight of women as similar in these two countries that most people think of as, like, so different.
Mm. Oh, thank you for that question. Um, I think it is different and it's not at the same time. And I think the similarities are far more than the differences. And I think one of the most important ones is really the idea of bodily policing that happens everywhere in this world, when it comes to some of the rights for women, for example, even here, even in the United States, the idea of abortion rights, it's insane to think about, that um, for one female body, a court has to decide. And the same thing in a way happens
Mhm.
back in Iran to Sara Khaki, because her identity has to be decided by the court, by the authorities, and and also as women in different work settings, I feel that it's really still, I think it is still a phenomenon that we have to um, work hard to become equals to men, and and that also having been an immigrant and a person of color adds to that difficulty as well. And I think there are a lot of layers that will put women in a position to have to work so hard um, to for that equality, and then the goal is to get to the equity, which is a long way to go, I think.
And also, as Sarah said, it's a very global story because now film being out, going to more than 100 film festivals, different countries, different places. Uh, we've got so many messages talking about similarities, about the nature of inequality, with different, of course, levels of inequality. And I love to share this story of one of amazing screenings that we had. So we've worked a lot to have Sara Shahverdi for festival experiences or screenings with audience, and we loved Sara to join us. But because of so many things that happened in Iran, and you are aware of, the war happened uh, a few months back, and now the many tragic things that happening inside the country, and making it so complicated to get visa for her. But one of the places that we were successful to get visa for her was South Korea. And
Oh, wow.
Sarah already joined us in one of the screenings. It was a very long trip for Sarah, and then everything was new for her. The culture, the language, and but she experienced for the first time watching the film in theater with audience. And then many teenagers attended the screening actually. And after the screening, they wanted Sarah to take pictures with them or asking for autographs, and then started to sharing their own stories of inequality. And for Sarah, it was surprising to see how connected her story is to people in South Korea because
Mhm.
they were talking about same things. And Sarah coming from northwest of Iran, the story now connecting to them, and also get some audiences in Europe, even a young lady from Berlin or Copenhagen saying that Sarah is our new role model. This
Mhm.
is this is beautiful to see that how our stories are connected to each other and how we need stories to remind each other that we need to fight for our own rights. And I'm here as a male director because I've seen a lot of similar stories in my community. I've seen so many amazing teenage girls, very talented, not having the chance to continue the lives that they deserve. And you saw some of them in the film, some sad stories in our film, but also seeing our main character fighting to create a space for them. And I feel responsible for those young generation. And I believe, strongly believe that if we want to have a dynamic society, we need to give more space to our women because many times they are stronger than us. And, one of them, Sara Khaki, my partner here, I really enjoyed working with her. She brought a lot of knowledge about inequality and also the film that we made together, our conversation about cinema. For me, as alone going and make Cutting to Rocks was not possible. So I was lucky to have a collaborator like Sarah, and we need to have collaborators like Sarah Shaved or Sara Khaki as a man in different areas. So I promise that we can really, really enjoy uh, giving more space to our women.
So, Mohammadreza, I was really interested to ask you this question. So, you're actually from, or your family is from the same area in Iran as the film is shot, and
Yes.
obviously you grew up in Iran. So, from the male perspective, how do you see it? Because you're in the privileged position. You have power. You have status in society. Um, why do you I mean, are most men in Iran like you? It's just the ones in power that create the rules. I mean, how do you see it from the male perspective and also just being around other men and knowing their opinions and their thoughts and how they see women? Like, give me your point of view.
Mhm. I think now you can find more men in Iran supporting their partners or their daughters, or their mothers, sisters. now you can see more of them, despite a lot of laws, rules, and social norms states are against women, but they have some partners that supporting them, despite
Mhm.
all of the things that are not fair. And this is something that I really enjoying, and I can feel that change. And even in our film, you see in the beginning, Sarah is one and only motorcycle rider in the village, and at the end, you see more teenagers uh, following Sarah, and also their parents being there to support them. This is very important. It was 7 years ago. It was not like that. And
Mhm.
for me, as someone from community, it was revolutionary act. And now four of those girls entered to the university. And
Wow.
now in the village, yes, now in the village and also in the region, others are looking at those girls and saying, why not our daughters? So,
Mhm.
the change
Yeah.
is very contagious. Well, if someone asks me to mention one lesson that I got from making Cutting Through Rocks, I can say to witnessing how contagious the change is.
Mhm.
This is one of the things, and it's important. And I can see, yeah, in my country, it's happening. And also, the different layers of the film happening in northwest of Iran, we see. Actually, historically, if you look here in the US, also you can see, but riding a bike was not something usual. And I was reading something interestingly about the biking phase. It was some studies saying that if a woman ride a motorcycle, their face is going to change, being ugly or something like, because they wanted women to stay indoor, not
Mhm.
riding. I can find it and share with you.
This
And
was,
then
you mentioned yesterday, Mohammadreza, you read something about it. It belonged to what year was it?
it was 1890 something. And it was an activist working
Wow.
to change that perception. I am worried to lose my video, but I can share with you here. It
Okay.
was
Cool. Oh, no,
Oh,
we can't hear you.
we lost your voice. Yeah. You should come back to this page because we lost, yeah.
Susan B. Anthony
Mhm.
uh, tried to shift that perception about, right. And she was like, riding a bike for women is about freedom. And our film, and Sarah is trying to teach teenage girls how to ride a motorcycle, because she believes that by teaching them how to ride motorcycle, they can do many other things, which is true. And this is riding motorcycle is a symbol of freedom in our film. And also the story of the riding a bike here in the US at 1890 is a similar story.
Well,
Because
send me the link and I'll post it when I post the video so people can check it out. Because
of course I was
That's
yeah,
fascinating.
it really, that I love examples like that from history and the ways in which things change and don't change. And that's, I think, a big theme, um, of the film. I mean, the film feels both hopeful and also incredibly depressing at the same time, with the progress that we see, and then also all the obstacles that Zara faces. So I was interested to ask you, has the film ever been screened in Iran?
Not yet, but we hope to do that because there because for two different settings. One is, in capital cities, the young generation, independent artists are creating art houses.
Oh, great.
Sorry, where films like ours can be shown, and then also in very grassroots settings through screening the film in different villages. We would, and including Sara Khakhi's village, we would love to screen the film and also witness the reactions of the audiences, and we're sure that this is going to create a lot of interesting conversations. We would love to witness that and be a part of it.
it's going to happen very soon.
I
hopefully.
mean, given everything that's happening right now with Iran in the news, both with the US military buildup that's happening as we speak, but then also all the recent protests that we've seen people speaking out against the current government. As you know, since I saw the film in May, literally as the bombs were first falling on Tehran, and thinking about the film and watching the news unfold, I have a lot of questions for you too about how this film can help someone like me or even you to understand the current moment. What are the connections you see between that story that you've now, I don't know when you stopped filming, but it was a few years ago. But what does the film say about now? How does it connect?
It's very much connected. If you want to understand what is happening now in the streets of Tehran, one of the examples to understand, one of the stories that you can have a better understanding, I can say, watching Cutting to Rocks.
Mhm.
And I'm sorry to witness a lot of tragic stories that are happening inside Iran. It's very hard for us to digest all of those stories. And also, we love to share the idea of hope behind Cutting to Rocks with our people because we need that in these very dark times. That
Mhm.
change is possible. That our people deserve a better future. This is very historic era in our country.
Mhm.
This is very important, very sensitive, and we are experiencing a lot of different emotions. And the story of Cutting to Rocks is more relevant than ever regarding what is happening in our home country. And we hope that it's going to be it's going to bring a better future for our people. The all things that are unfolding in Iran.
I agree with you, Mohammadreza. You said it so beautifully. I also wanted to add that in some ways, as filmmakers and as storytellers, we find it in a way our responsibility to dedicate our lives and have enough patience to try to tell stories that go beyond the headline news. Sometimes when what we hear, as Iranians, what we hear from the US and vice versa, as Americans, what we hear, what's happening in Iran, really just ends up on the headline news. And we don't get to have the privilege of connecting on a human level. And movies, stories, and cinema is really the only true connector on a human level. And I think if we don't tell these stories, then we would have no idea how the day-to-day struggle of a woman in the northwest of Iran would look like. And same in the United States. I know that I'm sitting right next to the Columbia University, and I just saw on the headline news what's happening at the Columbia University. Here we are, February 2026, and I'm just thinking, I'm just putting myself as in the shoes of someone who is sitting in Tehran reading that. We are disconnected in so many different levels, and we just think of arrests, war, you know, and headlines. That's it. And frankly, we've become, I say that in the most sincere way, we've also become numb as to what's happening outside of our territory. We feel that, oh, there was a bombing in this place or a war in that place, and how many people killed. We just think of numbers as statistics, whereas these are real people, these are real lives that we are losing. And if we don't get to know the emotional storylines of their lifetime, then we would lose that idea of being human in general, you know. And I think as filmmakers, we feel very, very responsible to touch on, have enough patience to touch on those human experiences and share that to the world.
So beautifully said. Um, I think our time is running out. Um, but I just wanted to ask one final question, just quickly, um, about the future for the film. Um, get in the next few weeks with the Oscars and all of that. If as the headlines play out, and whether or not war happens or regime change or more protests, what is it that you hope those of us understand who've seen your film about the current moment? Like, as it's so relevant in so many ways, but if there was one part of the film, one message, one scene, one line from Zara that you think is most important for us to keep in mind, what would it be?
Mhm.
I'll just jump in to say that one thing that's stuck in my mind is that change is um, not an overnight journey, and it is inevitable. However, but it also has to happen within, you know, within each community. We cannot be um, bombarding a country and pretending that we are changing it for better. That is my perspective to this. But on the other hand, what puts us in a very, very unique um, and uncertain position is that there's a lot of moving pieces to this that is not as simple as just that, you know, um, because what's happening right now um, demands. I mean, we it's really, really uncertain what how things are going to unfold. But also on the other side, you know, on the other hand, what we can share about our um, feelings is that
Mhm.
when the story of Cutting Through Rocks came out, you know, we of course we weren't sure we would ever finish the film, but miraculously we did. And over the course of a year, now here we are, you know, after the film was released, after so many festivals. It's we are honored and proud to say that this is a story that was independently made and shot in Iran, and now is nominated for the very first time in the history for the Oscars. And um, you know, and it does kind of put us in an interesting position while we do not have a U.S. distribution. Um, in some ways, we are um, cutting through the rocks of the industry to be where we are today, and that could be a nice reminder to other filmmakers that they could, although it's a lot of work, but they can remain independent with their points of views. And it could, you know, in a way we could offer inclusivity in this business and in this industry in some ways, to remain that way. And we hope that with tenacity and perseverance things change for the better for all.
Yeah, and also uh, thanking for asking this question, Kathleen. We need to be sensitive about what is happening in other places. And Sarah, as Sarah mentioned, we shouldn't be numb about uh, different things all around the world. And I think now, regarding what is happening in Iran, just spreading the word, just showing the empathy, it's going to help a lot. It's going to give people the sense that they're not alone. So this is why stories from all around the world help us to understand the human values, understand each other. We can't be happy without having so many stories coming from different parts of the world, people under pressures. You know what I mean? This is why we are telling the stories, to create more sensitivity about other stories coming from other places. So I can say what I really want to people keep in mind by watching Cutting Through Rocks, as I trying to keep in my mind, is the importance of small changes in our communities. We don't, as the imagination, the beautiful word that you use, we don't know how these imaginations could travel, how far they could go, these small changes that people who dare to imagine the better future could bring to this world. And we need that. This is why we are telling story, telling the stories, why we are storytellers, and why we are here to talk about those stories.
Beautifully said by both of you. We have to imagine a better world, and using the language of cinema to bring our imaginations out into the open so we can share and discuss them is, I think, what you've done with this film in an amazing way. So congratulations. I hope, even given all the world events, you can enjoy the next few weeks of the Oscars and the ceremony itself. And congratulations on cutting through rocks to make this incredible film. I really, really
so much.
appreciate you both so much. You're very special.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. This has been a very, very special conversation and really, really enjoyed speaking with you.
Thank you. Thank you both. Good luck with everything. Be well.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.